Hi there. Now, I've had ME for a long time, probably all my life, but I was diagnosed in 2001. I was moderately to severely affected and managed to get by without the doctor's help, apart from them giving me antibiotics and other medication for pain and constant infections and occasional blood tests and referrals. It was when I became bedridden that I realised how limited the NHS support is. I had been under an NHS ME clinic for a few years, attending sessions in a local hospital. I deteriorated under their care, and when I became bedridden, I was sent to an ME clinic occupational therapist to do home visits. I've done a separate video on that, so I won't go into it here, but I'll put a link to it in the description. I'm under 2 GPs at my local surgery, and their response to me becoming bedridden wasn't entirely helpful. Initially, I was sent a physiotherapist who suggested exercise that I was unable to do and which put me into a state of paralysis. After this one session, she suggested that I took up physio when I was a bit better, and I didn't see her again. After it was obvious my staying in bed wasn't going to be a short spell of time, one of the GPs decided to call in the psychiatrist. I was in a terrible state emotionally. Becoming bedridden with ME does that to you. So the doctor felt that I could do with some psychiatric help. I had a psychiatric team assess me, who then deemed me perfectly sound in mind, saying all my distress was due to my symptoms and not any mental health issues. Then a psychologist was called in. She said she couldn't really help me, but would refer me to a CBT team. So I had a CBT assessment over the phone, but it was concluded that I wasn't well enough to do what was required, and they couldn't adapt their programme to my needs. As it happened, Nigel ended up having the CBT treatment programme, which consisted of 4 20-minute phone calls and a booklet. It was totally inadequate and unhelpful. During this time, I was suffering extreme nausea and retching and having trouble eating. I was on liquid foods and a very limited diet, so a dietitian was sent out to me. She checked the ingredients of the protein powder and meal drink that I was on and said I was getting enough of what I needed. However, she told me that she couldn't help me because I couldn't eat. I had a couple of phone calls from her in the following weeks, but she had nothing to offer as regards practical suggestions or advice on what foods to have. I asked my surgery for the 40-sip meal drinks and was given 1 pack, but after that my GP told me to blend food instead, despite Nigel not being well enough to do this, and no more meal drinks were supplied. That GP decided to give me a home visit herself. On seeing my Get Well Soon cards that people had sent me, she told me that I was getting quite a lot of attention being bedridden. She also indicated that I enjoyed having carers and no responsibility. She said I was suffering immobility syndrome because I wasn't moving around much, and that if I didn't do something to improve, I would fade away. I wasn't very encouraged. At one time it was suggested that I was referred to Ward 40 in Leeds General Hospital, where there are a few beds reserved for ME sufferers. It's a psychiatric ward which takes patients with unexplained health conditions. I was put on a waiting list for a year, but I pulled out when I spoke to other ME sufferers who had been there. I've done a video about my Ward 40 admission, which I'll link to in the description. You'll find it very interesting in the experiences in the comments below the video. I was also passed on to the charity ME North East, who arranged for somebody to ring me twice a week. She was very nice, but at a loss to know what to suggest, my ME being so severe. She was totally out of her depth, and the phone calls eventually fizzled out. From day one, the support was pathetic for what has been a terrifying experience. I was so ill and desperately needed help, but was left without any. I was just passed from one to another. Even my hospital experience was the same, and resulted in me being sent home in a state of paralysis because they couldn't do anything for me. Any improvements I've made, or things that I've found helpful, have been what I found out myself. We've had to educate our GPs, providing books and DVDs on ME, when they should be giving us the suggestions and advice. But when it comes to the NHS, we ourselves are the experts. Hopefully one day that will change, but up to now it's been a shameful token service. Well, thanks very much for listening. Bye.